My very good friends, the Andrade situation has taken quite the turn. I'm Andy from WhatCulture. This is the news. And we're doing a quick update on his debut and sudden disappearance from AEW. Of course, Andrade was on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago, joining the Don Callis family, seemingly setting up a program for the pay-per-view Wrestle Dream with Kenny Omega. And just like that, he was gone. No further appearances, no word on why. We had the Don Callis birthday celebration thing. He wasn't there. The stable's other 400 members were not there. But it's been hanging over people for the past week or so. Where's Andrade? What happened? What's going on? Blah, 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 blah. All of this stuff. Well, today, it seems that a non-compete issue with WWE has been the problem. So, let's go through all of this. Let's start at the very beginning. A few weeks ago, he left WWE. There were reports in the aftermath of his departure. Talks of disciplinary issues. Talks of wellness policy stuff. Various other things. It seemed like he'd been let go rather than just coming to the end of his contract, right? And usually, when you're let go before the end of your contract, when you're released rather than expiring, you have a non-compete. That is a clause that forbids you from working anywhere else for whatever day the period may be. Now, you're technically still employed, you're still paid during that period, but you can't do anything else. You can't go anywhere. You can't show up on another TV show. If you're on the main roster, that is typically 90 days. If you're in NXT, it is typically 30 days. Andrade, main roster, you would think 90 days. He showed up on AEW Dynamite just a few days after his WWE departure, basically. Attacked Kenny Omega, pulled off a mask. It was a lights out angle with a mask. And then he joined the Don Callis family and seemingly entered that feud. That's the timeline of events that have played out kind of in public, right? Between all of this, he has had this disappearing act, and we've had a report from, various different outlets have covered this. Yesterday, on the news, we spoke about Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Radio saying that he's not around, but nobody is willing to explain why. Nobody will explain what's going on. And just today, a few hours ago, myself and Adam on the morning news, we spoke about a Fightful report to where nobody would disclose why Andrade was pulled from shows, but one person intimated that it wasn't AEW's fault and it wasn't Andrade's fault. So it was just one of those things. We speculated then, while we were speaking about the story, that it might be a family issue. It might be a personal issue. Who knows? Those can be kept public. We also speculated that maybe it was a contractual issue stemming from something to do with the end of his WWE contract. And so it seems to have transpired, because we have this new report here today on the Wrestling Observer Radio. Fightful, we covered that one earlier in the morning, but this Wrestling Observer report from Brian Alvarez, who said, I'll just read you the quote. Apparently something is up involving his WWE non-compete. I was given the impression that it could be something that could be resolved quickly, or it could be something that might not be resolved for a while, but it is something related to the non-compete. There's a little bit more here. I've been hearing WWE sent a letter and AEW obviously didn't know. The AEW obviously believed there was not a non-compete. Now, very interesting, this. He left WWE on the 3rd, was it the 3rd of September, something like that? It wasn't the 3rd of September, it wasn't that long ago. But he has wrestled one match since leaving WWE. It was for the Crash on the 3rd of October. So that has happened. Obviously, they're not a company with American television, so maybe they didn't get the same letter as AEW. Reading between the very broad lines of the report here, it sounds like there's whatever period of a non-compete attached to Andrade, be it 90 days, be it whatever. AEW did not know about it, and the letter they were sent was presumably a cease and desist, right? Something from the WWE legal team saying, hey, we have this clause, you cannot use him, you have violated this clause, and you must stop, basically. Now, this brings up interesting questions of what happens next, I think. For Andrade, I think it's a simple case of chilling at home until your days are up, right? He'll presumably still be getting paid by WWE, unless there are different terms of his departure, through this non-compete period. So, hey, cool, collect 2 paychecks, man. You won in this situation. You don't have to do anything. I'm sure he'd rather be wrestling, though. So he'll be. I mean, you'd imagine he'd be back around as soon as this thing expires. From a WWE standpoint, do they press this? Do they take this further? If there has been a violation of an agreement, they may choose to do so. Or the cease and desist may be enough. If you know more about the American legal system than I do, please fill in those gaps in the comment section below as to what might eventually happen. And if you're AEW, you've got no choice but to rather just not use him and wait, basically. Pay any fines or whatever. I don't know how these things work. But it is interesting because it's a violation of a non-compete. We don't see this. This doesn't happen, right? In pro wrestling, this never happens. And for years, I've kind of fought covertly. It'd be really interesting if someone tested this term because they're independent contractors. They're not employees while they're there. So how would that stand up in a legal situation, right? Say someone chose to... Say someone knew, and I'm not saying Andrade knew, but say somebody knew they had a non-compete and they just went and did stuff anyway, right? What if they just went, screw it? Let's see what happens in court. How would that play out? My brain says probably not good for the person violating the term, but then part of it's like, well, they're independent contractors. They're beholden to this contractual term that is probably not fair, but they have agreed to it in their contracts when they sign with these big companies. We know how it works. Interesting one to consider for sure. So with regards to all of this, I remember a few weeks ago, we talked about it again on the news. Dave Meltzer had done some reporting on Andrade's WWE departure that Andrade disagreed with, shall we say. Andrade criticized him very publicly on Twitter about this whole thing. And you have to wonder if maybe the non-compete situation had come to light backstage by then. I'm not too sure. Who knows? Obviously, it's a different matter if he did know about the clause and he's just gone, screw it. But there's no indication that that is the case, right? That's not being reported anywhere. All chances are that I'm going to assume, given the benefit of the doubt, that he departed, he assumed there was no clause, and he figured it was okay to appear on TV. Now, the burden of whose job is it to know whether or not the non-compete is active is also an interesting question, because ultimately AEW are the people who make the decision to put him on their television show. So they should have no doubt whatsoever when they're doing that there is no non-compete, right? They should use whatever tools are in their power to find out. That may just be a simple case of going, hello, Mr. Andrade, do you have a thing? Just asking him. And if he says, no, I do not, I mean, there's no reason not to believe it or anything like that, but what kind of policy is in place there? It makes me wonder. Andrade would presumably know, right? He would have some kind of terms coming out of WWE, and you'd imagine it would be clear whether or not he had one, unless that wasn't gone over at the time of his departure. That wasn't clarified. That wasn't brought up during the severance meetings. And WWE screwed him over and just applied it. Who knows? Who knows, man? It's a crazy situation, this. I can't think of anything like this in terms of contract violations since I started doing this job, and that was in 2016, for goodness sake. So yeah, it's been a while, as Stained may say. So to summarize all of this, Andrade is seemingly off AEW television because of a non-compete issue stemming from his old WWE contract. This is weird. This is wacky. I'm sure there will be more follow-up from this. But until then, keep locked in. Check out this video we recorded this morning. We did speak a bit about this story, but there's all kinds of other stuff. Mercedes going crazy on Twitter. John Cena selling tickets. It's all good. It's all good. I'm off tomorrow, but back soon. See you later. Bye.